set? All right. Hey, welcome everybody to Ryan Beeson Winter Retreat, which is different than Ryan Beeson Winter Retweet, which is just pictures of Harrison and Ryan in Santa hats. So we're talking about Paul today. I'm Rick, Mack, in case you guys didn't know. We're talking about Paul today. Paul is a guy in the Bible. Most of you have heard of him. A pretty big name. In case you haven't heard of him, he's the guy who's in charge of, or has written most of the New Testament. So pretty big deal. We're talking about the time that he had his story changed from what it was originally. And that's kind of where I want to live with you guys a little bit today, is like, what's your story? And what story do you want to tell at the end of the day? Now I'm going to break this down into three pretty simple pieces. But what I need you guys to do is to focus in. I promise it's a short message. I'm going to try to keep it high energy and keep you guys moving. What we're talking about is how can we look at this story of Paul and Saul on his journey to Damascus, and how does that actually affect us, and how does that run into us, and how do we take stories from the Bible and apply it to our lives? And now those of you that are raised in the church or been to church recently and at least have some background in it, there's a lot of stuff in here for you, but there's also stuff in here for those of you that just aren't sure. If you're on the fence, you're like, you know what, I came because my friends were coming, they brought me along, or hey, I've been going to church for a long time, but I'm really just not sure where I stand with all of this stuff. I promise there's stuff in here for you too. Just good stuff. The Bible is full of amazing pieces that you can apply to your life, whether you believe in God and Jesus and the Bible, for that matter, or not. It's just an amazing piece of scripture that we can pull stuff out of. So, I don't know about you, but at the end of the day, I want my story to be the kind of story that I want to tell people and I want to share. You all have had a cool event happen in your life that you're like, hey, I really need to share this with somebody, right? Maybe it was that time you did something athletically and you're like, man, that one time, maybe I'm bad all the other times, but that one time I made that catch, or I made that throw, or I made that basket. Or maybe it's something academically, like, hey, I studied so hard, or hey, I didn't sleep all night and then just took the test randomly and then I aced it, right? Or, we all have those stories that we want to share. And I'm talking about not those little glimpses, but I'm talking about a full life story. I want you guys to be walking around, and this is going to date me a little bit. Actually, it's probably even beyond me a little bit, but there's a movie called When Harry Met Sally. There's an iconic scene that maybe has been re-released in pop culture, but I want you guys to have the I want what she's having moment in your lives. I want people to see you and want what you have. Okay? I want you to have the kind of story that brings people to better life and a better story of their own. So I've got basically three steps, super easy steps for you to follow and kind of listen in on. Now, if you have something to write on, awesome. If you don't, I need you to lock this stuff in your brain. Most of you have a phone. If you have the phone on you, you're going to want to jot down a couple notes, because me just talking at you and giving you structure of how things should be or what things should be or a lesson on this or that, it only goes as far as that. You have to actually apply stuff. Okay? Hopefully you don't come here just to only meet with friends, but actually come here to grow and improve yourself. And if you don't, that's your first step right there, is just kind of think, why are you here? Okay? I know I think about that for myself all the time. If I'm in a situation, why am I here? Why am I actually here? What do I want to get out of this? So today, I have 3 things I want you to get. Okay? And I'm not going to give you those right off the top, because then it would just be a boring 2-minute lesson. Okay? So, now the first thing we're going to talk about, I know that you all have. It's that thing that occupies your brain constantly. Okay? For me, for a while, I was playing Madden 2016 with my son. He got into football. And so I was watching a football game on TV, and I was like, something's off. And I'm like, there's no little circle under all the players running around. And I didn't know what was going on, but I had been playing Madden so much that kind of consumed my thoughts, and it was starting to affect the way I saw the football games on TV, like a regular football game. I was like, what the heck, where's the circle? Why isn't their name listed underneath of their player? So, tackle, it wouldn't do it. However, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, which I am super stoked about. I'm sorry if you guys aren't. That's neither here nor there. Second thing, I also got into a couple people I work with, and I know you guys can relate to this maybe in your own friendships. Like your friends get really into something, and then you kind of like start to find interest in it as well, and then you go on YouTube or go online and find information about it. So I had some friends that were just talking politics all the time. I felt dumb because I don't really follow politics and that kind of stuff. I kind of leave that off to the side a little bit. I try and make educated decisions when I'm voting, but then I try and kind of stay out of the fold generally. That's just me. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's me. However, my friends got into politics, so I started watching YouTube videos about politics. And as you guys know, YouTube videos are very one-sided a lot of times, right? Very biased, very, to use like the term propaganda, right? It's like you only get one side of the story, you don't get all the sides of the story. So I was watching those a lot, and I felt myself, my heart just like getting entwined in that. And then all the time I wanted to like bring up politics with people that weren't even talking about politics. Like, hey, you know, did you see the new Star Wars movie? Yeah, but did you see the Republican debate last night? You know, it's like, that's not me. I didn't know who that was, but it was just like ingrained in my brain. And so I had to like realize that. A funny example, I was watching, this a couple years ago, I was like religiously watching Walking Dead. Right? And I had not watched any of it, and I was catching up on it. Are we allowed to watch Walking Dead in church? Not in church, maybe. Outside of church, yeah. So I was watching that, and I was binge watching it, so it was like consuming my downtime that I have, which I had way more than I thought I did when I start watching TV shows. So I'm watching The Walking Dead, and like I'm driving down the road, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a great barn to hide out in. And then I'm like walking through the halls of school, I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to run around this corner up here, I'm going to jump on top of that locker, go up through the ceiling tile, down into that room, bar myself in there. I'm pretty sure they have some tools in that room that I could use to fend them off. And the climax of this, I was sitting in church, listening to a great sermon by one of my best friends, and I'm like looking out the windows, and the windows are actually very similar to this, and I'm like picturing zombies walking past, I'm like, I'm going to run up on stage, grab some drumsticks, and then immediately I was like, I can't do that. What's going on? And it's just consuming me, right? And that goes on the negative side too. Man, when I was, and this started taking like a major left turn here. When I was in college, I was like into looking at stuff not so great, right? On the internet machine. And dude, how I viewed people around me was skewed. It just distorted my thoughts and my interactions with people. Golly. It's just crazy how much our brains control our, just how our outlook on life. So my first point is, like, what rules you? What rules your thoughts? And that's something that I think if I just tell you right now, you'd automatically be able to share with me, and be able to say, you know, this or that, or, you know, I'm playing this game a ton, or I'm hanging out with these people that aren't so great, or I'm watching this TV show. What you're putting in is what's spinning around in there, and that's how you see everything outside of the world. So I need you to like be honest with yourself in this. And remember, I'm trying to keep this message short. This could be a whole series, right? But your just your thoughts and your brain and how that all interacts. Like, you got to be honest with yourself. What are you hanging on to that is controlling how you view out of your lenses? Okay. Now, there's a old book called Where the Red Fern Grows. I don't know if you guys have read that. It's an old book. I loved that book when I was a kid. My wife will not read it. She's never read it. She says, I know what's going to happen. I'm not reading that book. She is like completely like against anything. We started watching the movie Babe, and she was like off anything that has an animal in it. Like, she doesn't care if like people die. Maybe that's concerning. But if animals die in the movie, she's okay. But you're out on that too. I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. But in that book, it talks about, and I actually had my grandpa do this. I never did it myself, but trapping raccoons. You take a vessel, in this case in the book it was a log with a crack in it, but I've heard like people like old butter churns and just boxes with holes in the top of them, and you put fruit or something down in there, and the raccoon reaches in and grabs that fruit, and then they don't let go. And then you come walking over with a club or a gun or something, and you just take them out. And they don't let go. So like, what's that thing? What's that piece of fruit that you have hanging in front of you that you're just not letting go of? For some of you, it's something as simple as a relationship, right? Which I guess simple maybe isn't the right term for relationship complexity, right? But maybe for some of you, it's that like relationship that you're not letting go of that you know you're supposed to let go of. You know it's not healthy, but you do it anyway. I'm still, but trying to kind of like work towards being healthier, okay? And I see like conference room, like teachers are notorious for bringing in tons of donuts, at least once or twice a week, and I see the conference room with donuts in there. I know those are bad for me. It's not like I'm being tricked or something. I'm not like, maybe these are the vegetable donuts. I better try one, right? And I know that they're bad for me, but I still grab it anyway, right? You are all in things or involved in things that you know are bad for you. You know that it's probably not good for you to sit in front of your phone for 2 hours watching YouTube videos. Right? I mean, can we all like agree with that relatively? No, okay, you need to agree with that relatively. Like, it's not good for you, okay? It's not engaging in the correct way for your brains. I'm not saying like that's bad. You know, to get on there, I do the same thing, right? But to sit there and waste away your time, not a good thing, right? Or maybe you're holding on to that grudge. Right? You're holding on to that grudge or that hate to that person, and you want them to know it, and so you're going to act extra grudgy around them, right? So that they know they hurt you. You won't talk to them about it, but you want them to know that you're right. Maybe it's that thing that you're kind of holding on to, and that's clouding your vision on how you react to other people, because you got something hurting here. For some of you, maybe, and this one might cut a little bit, but for some of you, maybe it's like trying to get acceptance from that particular person. A parent, a mom, a dad, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, and you want that kind of acceptance, you want that love, you want that connection. And so you're letting that cloud your judgments. You're not allowing yourself to experience what God has for you, or a better life, or a better story, because you're clouded by the decisions that are going to affect how this works over here. Okay? And not that we don't concern ourselves with this, but our decisions that we make and our thoughts that we have should not concern you.
Could you say all that again? Because there's a lot of people that didn't hear what you just said.
So when you are interacting or when you are talking about a relationship with somebody, particularly I think a relationship where you're seeking acceptance, it is important that you don't allow this relationship with this person to affect the decisions you make on the long term. You don't want to let this affect how your story goes. We can be good here, we can have a relationship here, but it doesn't affect our major decisions and our decisions that we do on the day-to-day. Because, I mean, then you're living for somebody else.
Right.
Right? You're not living for God or for the best story if you don't believe in God, which I hope you do. Right? So, what rules you? What rules your brain? What rules your reactions? So, the best way that I've found to combat this is what I want you to throw in your phones, throw in your notebooks. Ready? Philippians 4:8. Write that down. Philippians 4:8. When you start feeling your brain going down that stinking thinking path, right? It's the thinking that you know is wrong thinking. Everything from simply like, that decision to allow food to control what you're doing, or that decision to pick that phone up one more time, or see how many likes you got on this particular thing, or see how many people reposted this, or chimed into that, double tap the screen, right? Get that heart going for Instagram. Like, if you start seeing that and seeing yourself, like, seeking out those things for affirmation in yourself, here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick up a Bible, and I want you to start memorizing Philippians 4:8. Whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable. Those are all good things. If anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. When you start seeing yourself going down those paths, this is practical stuff, guys. This isn't, oh, that was a good message. Thanks, Rick. You did a good job. And then we turned around. This is practical stuff that you can apply to your life. I have Post-its written around my house with this stuff on it. When I'm in a particularly bad mood, I go sit on the can and just stare at my phone forever, hiding from my kids in the house or whatever it might be. Guess what's sitting right beside my toilet? It's a Post-it note of Philippians 4:8. Got it? I know where I go. I know my habits. I know what I do. So I put things in my path to help redirect that because we know what is good and we know what is bad. And we need to find a way to stay away from the bad and move towards the good. Okay? And it's not about a whole life. It's not about throwing your whole life at changing whatever it is. Take one step at a time. Figure out what's the next thing you have to work on and move one step closer to God, one step closer to a better story. Second thing I want to talk about, so that's the first thing. One, what is controlling you? What are you letting rule your life? Answer that question. Be honest with yourself. What is controlling me, really? You have to be honest with yourself. Because if you're not honest with yourself, that question is never going to get answered. Second thing I want to talk to you about is emotions. Okay? So emotions rule a lot of our decisions as well. Right? Going back to the donut thing. I'm a little bit hungry. I could go drink some water. Fill my belly up a little bit. Maybe get some carrots. Or that donut that might be vegetable based. I'll try that. Right? We have our emotions that control us. That's why they say never go to the grocery store while you're hungry. Right?
Right.
You set things up in your path so that you can make logical decisions instead of emotional decisions. And I know this is a little bit similar to our last point. However, I do feel like sometimes we do let our emotions, not even just our thoughts cloud our judgment, but our emotions cloud our judgment. Emotions are amazing, but they need to remain a guide. If you're feeling angry, okay, why am I feeling angry? Not, okay, I'm going to act out in anger. If you're feeling lonely, don't say, okay, I need to go be with someone. Say, okay, why am I lonely? And get to the root of it and not to the quick solution of it. I think a lot of times we will run to a significant other, or maybe that one-time thing, when we're feeling lonely, because that's how we fix that quickly. Okay? Or we tell something intimate to somebody that really they had no business knowing, because we want to feel a connection with somebody. Okay? A lot of times we let our emotions rule our thinking. Terry Crews. You guys familiar with Terry Crews? The pet guy? Cheese. So Terry Crews has a thing called HALT. I love it. I teach it to my kids at school. If you are hungry, H. Right? You are angry, A. If you are lonely, L. Or if you are tired, T. HALT. Right? If you are any of those things, do not make any decisions. Okay? Run away. That's another one of those things, man. Put it on your background of your phone. HALT. You'll know what it means. Okay? Don't make any major life decisions when you're in an emotional crisis. When you are at an emotional weak point, don't make any life decisions. But as you go about your day and as you start to think daily about what you're doing, what you're choosing to do, and how you are engaging the world, right? I want you to constantly think back to, okay, what am I rooted in emotionally? What am I rooted in at my foundation? And here's the next thing I want you to write down. It's Galatians 5:22. Give me a second, let me make sure. Yep, Galatians 5:22. If you spell it wrong, it's okay. I bet if you Google it, it'll still look out, right? Galatians 5:22. Put it in your phone, put it in your notes. Remember, we're being practical learners today. 5:22. We're being practical learners today. We are not going to just sit here and listen and then turn it off. We are going to take this stuff and actually start to apply it to our lives. Because I want the best story for you, and I hope you want the best story for yourselves. Okay? I know this particular message, as I was prepping it over the last week or two, has been kicking me in the butt. I'm not saying that it's easy. Okay? But I am saying that we need to take steps forward to have a better story, to have a better life. Because I think deep down you all want that, whether you show it or not. Galatians 5:22 are the fruits of the Spirit. Okay? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So, if we focus in on these things, against such things there is no law. There is no law out there saying don't love. There's no law out there that says don't make peace. There's no law out there that says don't have self-control. Okay? Against such thing there is no law. So why not have ourselves rooted in these things? And how do we get that? Well, guess what? It's called the fruit of the Spirit. Okay? Big S, Spirit. So, how do we tap into that? Well, we have to draw near to God. When we draw near to God, He'll draw near to us. And when we do that, the Holy Spirit starts working in us. And those things develop. Oh, I have terrible patience, right? Or I have terrible self-control. Well, guess what? It's not the self-control of Ryan. It's not the self-control of Cole or Sam or Josh or Horatio. It's the self-control of the Spirit. It's a fruit of the Spirit. So how do we develop that? We draw near to God. How do we draw near to God? This is the time where I want you to answer. Get in the Word. Absolutely. Get in the Bible. Start reading it. If it's confusing, find a good study Bible. Find a good reference, some good reference material to help you walk through it. Right? How about praying? How about quiet time? Put things in your path so that you can be successful on this. Don't just take these words and say, that was cool. Thanks, Rick. That was well packaged. Nicely done. Right? Take it and actually do something with it. That's why I don't do this for my own benefit. Right? I got other stuff to do. I got 4 kids at home. I do this for you guys. So take it. Take it. You have to put stuff into practice in order to start that story going down the correct path. Because what happens here is, as little things spring up, this little relationship thing over here, this little, you got a little fender bender, right? What college do I pick? Like, relatively small stuff. I know college thing can seem daunting, but it's not. It really isn't. These little things that pop up, these little decisions that you have to do throughout the day. Should I go hang out with this person? Should I go hang out with this person? And the more and more you practice making those decisions based off your rootedness in the Holy Spirit, the more you do that, the easier it becomes. And then guess what? When big problems come, it's a heck of a lot easier. And big problems, I'm talking about like when your car breaks down and decides it wants to be a couch instead. Right? And it's just sitting there and it's only good for sitting on. Right? When your car decides it wants to do that. But even like more severe stuff that cuts you even deeper, right? That person hurt you. That person you really trusted, maybe a parent, maybe a significant other, maybe a best friend, they hurt you. Like, what do you do about that? How do you react to that emotionally? I promise that if you practice the fruits of the Spirit and the little stuff, when that big stuff comes along, so much easier. You have a much clearer vision of what it's like to make good decisions. And when we make good decisions, we have good stories. Okay? What about when the doctor's when the doctor's report's not so great, right? That's happened to a lot of people relatively close to me. One particular one, there was a boy that was good friends with my son and my daughter. His name was Canaan. I think I maybe shared about him before, so I'll keep it slightly brief. But he basically, about I think it was 3 or 4, developed leukemia. Now, this is a family that had gone to church. They were relatively kind of like, they were in the door. They had 2 feet in the door at church, but they weren't like on fire, go get them. Okay? They were good people, good church people, as much as you could say that. Their son gets leukemia. Like, what do you do about that? It's their oldest of 2, 4 years old, and a bleak outlook on this. So they did what they needed to do. They went through the procedures and got kind of the cancer part taken care of. Well, their first attempt at this or stab at this was with chemo, and that just did terrible. Like just it eats up a person. If you've not seen anybody go through that, man, it would just tear you up. He wasn't really getting better, so they did a bone marrow transplant with his then younger brother, who was only 3 years old. They took marrow out of the younger brother and put it into the older brother. And that really started working. In fact, for 2 years, he was great. He was back to his normal self, running around being a little boy. And then it came back. And so then there was this new procedure where they actually take your red cells, I think, and recharge them and then put them back in your body to fight back against the cancer. And guess what? He was cured of cancer. Praise Jesus. Right? A year later, brain tumor. 4 months later, he's gone. What kind of God does that? Those are the tough questions that we have to ask ourselves. And that's why a lot of people leave the church. But I tell you this, because of that story, and because of how mom and dad reacted through that story, not overestimating here, and I don't know an exact number, but I bet we have 40 to 60 people now coming to our church that are learning about Jesus every day, because they came to that funeral, they heard our pastor preach, they saw the love that was in that church, and because of that little boy who is in heaven, it's not like dead gone, right? Because of that little boy, 40 more to 60 more people can now be in heaven. Okay? Sometimes things are tough, but what we do with those tough situations is what defines us and defines our story. And I promise, the more you lean into these fruits of the Spirit, the more you lean into that relationship with God, the easier these things are, okay? Now, I'm going to keep moving on here, but I want you to, again, be honest with yourself. Like, what's ruling your emotions? Are you easily angered? Why? Get down to the root of it. Are you easily falling in love with this person and this person and this person? Get to the root of it. Why? Don't do the quick patch and get together with this guy and then get together with this guy and then get together with this guy. Don't constantly try and appease people so that you can get affirmation on who you are. Get to the root of it. Why are you actually reacting in these things, these emotional decisions? Why are you reacting in those ways? And I promise that if you lean into God, He will lean back into you and He will help you in those emotional decisions. My last point for today is going to start actually tying in the story of Paul, because the interesting thing, I don't know how much you guys know about the story of Paul, but Paul, he was walking, or he was a leader in the Jewish community, right? And so he was gung-ho about God, like our God, like he loved our God, the same God that we love. But he was gung-ho, and he heard about this Christian movement, right? It's called the Way, right? And he's like, man, this is against God. Good Jewish families are now turning away from God to follow this Jesus guy. And he was angry and upset about that. It said he was fuming at the nostril. And he was seeking out Christians to kill them. Or to have others kill them. Okay? And so he was so clouded by his religion and his belief of right and wrong that he was actually going against the very thing that he believed in. Okay, and so he's walking down the road towards Damascus, where these Christians are. He's going to go wrangle up some, right, to take them back to Jerusalem to put them in jail. And all of a sudden, this blinding light comes out, and he hears the voice of God, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you hurting my people? And he's like blinded, and he's like, I'm sorry. And then God is like, hey, look, I need you to go to the city. And there you will find a man named Ananias, and he'll help you. And so Saul at the time, his friends help take him back to the city, and he's held up in this house where he's blind and he's not eating or drinking anything. And then God talks to Ananias, and then here's where I think we find ourselves in the story, and here's where I want you to start focusing in, extra special, because I've got like 3 minutes left. And I know some of you are tired, so focus in. Ananias, I think, is a lot better representation of us than Saul. Most of you haven't been running around killing people. Most of you. Most of you weren't super high up religious leaders that are super zealous about God and like hunting down people because they don't believe in God. Most of you don't find yourselves in that point. Most of you find yourselves in the place where, hey, yeah, I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus, and I want to be a part of that. And then something comes in your way, and you're like, you have a decision to make. Are you going to, intellectually, are you going to use your mind and make a correct decision? And emotionally, are you going to make a correct decision? What have you been putting in here and studying and focusing on so that you can make a correct decision? Ananias is basically put like, hey, Ananias, I need you to go to this house, and I need you to lay hands on Saul so that he can be healed. Now, Ananias knows who Saul is. Saul is the guy that's coming to town to kill people. Ananias is probably hiding out. So put yourselves in those shoes. Hey, I need you to go to this person that, is killing people like you. And I need you to lay hands on them and heal them. I don't think that was God talking. That was probably just that burrito I had this morning. It's not, it's a decision. And Ananias, guess what he does? He doesn't listen. He's like, but God, isn't this the same guy that's killing Christians? Isn't this the same guy that's like taken out? And guess what God says? God's like, go! Exclamation point. In the Bible. Right? Go! For I have great plans for this man. Plans to bring the Gentiles to know who I am. Gentiles, basically anybody that's not Jewish. Okay? Ananias listens. He goes, he lays hands on Saul. Saul eventually becomes known as Paul. And just spreads the gospel like wildfire. Now, could God have used somebody else if Ananias immediately just was like, no, I'm still not doing it? Absolutely. God had great plans for Paul, and he could have used somebody else. But Ananias gets to have that as the part of his story now. How cool is that? God didn't choose, or we didn't choose God, God chose us. And God called out to Ananias. He's like, hey, Ananias, I need you to do this for me. And Ananias is like, I'm on it. Right? And now that's part of his story. How cool is that? And now so many people know Jesus because of that one little step of faith that Ananias took. So what I want you guys to really think about is, like, what's the go? When I was a kid, how many of you have raced go-karts before? Yeah, a few of you. Okay. And I'm not talking about those little tiny things. But when I was a kid, I went over to my buddy Lance's house. His dad just bought new go-karts, like big souped up dogs, like huge mud tires, the roll bar over the top, right? The one that doesn't have like the governor that stops you at like 15 miles an hour, but this thing, you can zip on this thing, right? And so I'm fourth grade. I gotta admit, I'm a little timid, right? I was a small guy back then, not so much now, but I was a small guy back then. And so I get seated down in the go-kart, and Lance's dad like walks me through, okay, here's how you start it up, here's how you do. If this happens, just like bail. If it starts rolling, just like hang on tight, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like freaking out more and more. And then they've got this huge farmland, like with dirt ramps and stuff like that. And so I'm like, okay. And he's like, all right, go ahead. So I turn it on. Yeah. Right? Get my grip going on the steering wheel. Yeah. And then I'm like, yeah, that's fun. And his dad, from the other side of the field, is like, go! I'm like, oh. And that's like, I take off, and I tell you what, I tore up that field, right? Dirt's flying everywhere, like bugs are flying in my teeth. I'm like, yeah! I was ready to go. Man, it's time for you to go.
Come on.
Stop sitting there thinking about wasting time, turning your brain to mush. Get good thoughts up here. Focus. What is true? What is right? Philippians. Right? Internalize. I gotta admit, like, so we got brain and now we got heart. Right? How am I reacting to the situations around me? How do I react better? We lean into Galatians. Now we get to go. Right? Because while we were still sinners, God laid down his life for us. What are we going to do then in response? And the biggest point of all, tonight, morning, I just want you guys to know that God loves you. Like, at the end of the day, if you screw it all up, he still loves you. This is just about having a better story, which is what I want for you guys. If Ananias didn't step out in faith and go and help Saul, at the end of the day, is God going to love him less? Absolutely not. It's not about that. God loves you, and he proved that by sending his son to the cross so that you could be with him again. Pull you out of the mire, pull you out of the pit that you're in, so that you can be with him. At the end of the day, if you still get all of this wrong, at least get one thing, that Jesus loves you and he wants to be with you again. All right? So, good thoughts, good hearts, and go. Got it? All right, thanks, guys.